the dollar. Let's go through the DXY. So yesterday we were looking pretty bearish. We did see price eventually break lows. However, looks like we have recovered that to a degree. Now, I'm not necessarily convinced about an up move, but you can see where price is trading, which was at these lows here. And of course, price has been bouncing continuously at these lows. And we did dip below. We didn't really see the continuation, didn't really see the momentum come into the market, which is why we didn't get the continuation. And of course, price is now closing back above the area. So am I convinced about the longs? Not really, to be honest. Again, we've seen some nice rejections at these areas. Of course, price is back within the range. This could result in a much bigger swing to the upside if I draw in the high of the range over there. So of course, price has just been consolidating between the high and the low, and we have been trapped between those two levels. Now of course, price has recovered back above that area. It could potentially mean more upside. I'm not quite convinced. Every time I'm seeing price just about make new lows, yeah, I'm not quite convinced about an up move here. So not necessarily. I mean, I know prices faked the low and back above the range, so according to the textbook, as long as price now back above that area, we could see the continuation, and that could be the play. But yeah, I'm not quite liking the setup itself. So USD, I'm not necessarily bearish because we're back above support. But I'm not necessarily bullish. I'm not necessarily banking on a continuation. I'm kind of just waiting for a bit more development. Maybe if price does come back and retest and show some momentum, I'll be a bit more convinced with the buys. But at the moment, I'm not quite convinced. Maybe if you do come back, start to reject some more, that might give me a bit more confirmation, a bit more confidence as well for the longs. But I'm not, yeah, I can see price closing back below, and of course that would confirm the short bias again. I did say if price does break to the downside, this is where I'm expecting us to get to. So if we do manage to get back below that level, that area, I do think 96.380 is where USD will be heading towards. But we are, of course, in that kind of critical point, make or break. We'll see how price develops. And I kind of have that same take with Euro as well. Euro did manage to break out resistance yesterday, but again, did manage to climb back in, but not very convincingly. So again, I'm not completely convinced with this pushback down. Yeah, I'm not completely convinced. So with USD, I still do somewhat have that bullish bias that price will make its way back to the high here at 1.18305. That's still what I'm expecting. Would I be looking to buy now? No, it's not really yet any area of significance. So that doesn't really allow me to look for any buys. If we were having the break and we tested this area, that would have been something to keep an eye on. But as you can see, price is trading below, so it's not really providing a buy opportunity. And if anything, it could provide a sell opportunity if we do start to see some wicks, some rejection into the high there. That could result in a continuation lower. So with EURUSD, with the DXY, we're back inside the range. If price can really confirm that we're rejecting the low or the high of the range in Euro's case, then that could provide some opportunities to look into. Just simply a break and retest, and probably a push back to the lower end of the range or the high end of the range in the DXY's case. So yeah, I'm just waiting for a bit more information. This is clearly price faking to the upside. Now we're back within the range. So if maybe instead of firing some wicks to the downside, we can put them to the upside, that will show that, okay, this is resistance again, and we could get that sell. So that's kind of what I'd wait for in Euro's case. But I would like to see more momentum in that bearish move there. That would give me a bit more confidence that, okay, this is that fake move. Price has recovered, and now we're likely to see the continuation. But I'll wait for candlesticks to print and get a bit more information there. In terms of pound USD, still stuck at the highs, I believe. Yeah, more or less still stuck at resistance. So we've got a very key level here around 1.35830. Price did wick into that level, a nice push down. There could have been some nice shorts. I wasn't overly sold on the shorts, to be honest. I do think price will eventually break through. But maybe if we had more of a significant rejection here, maybe a nice piercing wick through the high, then a recovery, I might have actually taken some short-term sells, but I wasn't quite convinced with that reaction either. I still do think the bigger move is going to be a push higher. The way price has rejected the low here, I do think the likely move will be a push higher for pound USD. But again, we do need to be trading above this area for the buys to actually make sense. I wouldn't want to be buying into that zone. Doesn't really make too much sense buying into such a critical level of resistance. But let's say if we do clear that level and we have this level to our backs, this does open up the opportunity for some longs. And as I said, the next big target would be all the way to the swing high at 1.378. So there is a lot of distance to cover. It's about 200 pips from this level to that high. So there's opportunities there, no matter the time frame really you're trading on. But this is really where the buys make sense. At the time being, we're not really trading anywhere really of significance. I mean, maybe in the lower time frames, you're looking at some pullbacks, some intraday pullbacks as we've been doing on an intraday scale, but still not really a big fan of buying back into that resistance there. So again, with pound, at least from a 4-hour perspective, not really doing anything for us. It would have been nice to see maybe a piercing wick through the high, then a recovery. That could have been a nice short. Not quite convinced with where we're trading right now. So again, waiting to see what we do back at highs, and that will help shape our buys for the remainder of the week and probably going to next week as well. That's really where I want to focus my efforts in terms of reading price. As for dollar CAD, I did get taken out for dollar CAD. Didn't really see the momentum in my favor. I still do like the shorts for dollar CAD. I did have my stop above the highs here. So as price did rally, this is where I was taken out for a loss. Didn't manage to get out early because price was still respecting this area. So I still stayed in the position. And then did get taken out for a loss above the highs. Like I said, I still do have that short buy, so I will be prepared to jump back in for some more entries. But I need to be careful as well, especially what the DXY is doing. The fact that the DXY did fail to show continuation, of course, might mean some more strength coming to the market for dollar, which will make it a bit awkward to short USD CAD if we're going to see some USD strength enter the market. CAD's also been a little bit weak as well, so that hasn't helped the position. But we're still trading in this supply zone to the left there. So the plan is, if we can hold this, looking for a drop. Or if this doesn't hold, I will look at the highs here as well for a short. Depending how we react, I think that's still a very smart place to enter the market. Stops above the high, looking for a downturn. I do still like this area a lot. So if this doesn't do its job and price does rally through the level, then 1.392 will be my interest going forward. So we'll keep an eye on this area for dollar CAD. Still too early to say if we will reject or sell off. It looks like price is having trouble at the highs here. So maybe if I dropped like an hourly chart, it might be something a bit more of an interest there. See, these are nice rejections with the wicks there, momentum shifting back down. The only trouble is that you are greeted with support right below. So even if you do take some shorts off the high here, which is some nice entries, some nice stop losses, you do have to watch out for this area here, because that could continue to consolidate and maybe price does break to the upside. So you probably want to either look to manage risk or trail stops, or even just look for a quick scalp. That's not a bad idea either. Of course, if you do see price get the break of that, it could open up the door to a push all the way back to the lows there as well. But it really depends how price does progress. On the lower time frames, some nice rejection, but watch out for 1.38406 because that could act as support. But yeah, we're still in that area of supply, so shorts still are valid. But if that zone doesn't hold and we do rally and we do see some more USD strength, then the shorts from 1.392 will be my interest going forward. As for Aussie dollar, back at highs, we did see somewhat of a reaction. I'm keeping an eye to see how we do develop because, of course, this is definitely a nice place for a short. We're also losing momentum as well. It's not like price is absolutely ripped to the upside. It's been mostly corrective. So that does show that, okay, despite the momentum, we are slowing down. As we approach resistance, maybe buyers are closing some positions, more sellers enter the market. So I am interested to see what Aussie dollar does at these highs. And again, if USD DXY is going to see that bounce at the low of the range, if we are going to push up higher, that should provide some strength for the dollar, which should provide some downside for Aussie dollar as long as Aussie is not outperforming the dollar, of course. But definitely an area of interest. I'm going to monitor how I react with 0.66250. and there could be some shorts there. We are approaching resistance. I still want a bit more upside before I really judge price, but we are in an area of interest. And I'll expand to the daily chart. You can see mostly we have been somewhat of an uptrend, but it's very, very flat. So I do think even though the sells are a little bit anti-trend, are a little bit counter-trend, it's not such a bad opportunity. It's not like we're steaming to the upside in a really aggressive trend. We have been relatively flat. So there is a chance of a reaction, but you know, I wouldn't be looking to hold for, let's say, a pushback to these lows. I would say that's a little bit too overconfident with that sell. I think if we can catch some shorts here, maybe a retest of that zone, then maybe price continues, but that short there could be worthwhile, and maybe we can speak about some longs later into the future. So I'll keep an eye on that for Aussie dollar, but nothing quite there yet. New Zealand dollar, interesting with this one as well. We are trading an area where, again, potentially a lower high could develop. We have broken through the trend line, which was the descending channel. So that has kind of not necessarily put to bed the bearish bias because price is still obeying structure. Again, descending, ascending channels are just reference points. Really, the thing you want to focus on the most is market structure. And this is our last lower high, and this is our last lower low. So despite the breakout, price could always recover that and come back within the channel. Fake outs are nothing new. This is really the key confluence, the key metric that price does need to break to really put the odds in favor of bulls, and that we are going to trend higher. And of course, we haven't done that quite yet. So I'm kind of just keeping a close eye on New Zealand dollar. But again, would I be looking for trades in this area? Potentially, we could see a lower high. We are still quite corrective, but no. Yeah, I'm not quite convinced, to be honest. I think even a push down, we do have some prior resistance turn support in that area and a really nice area of demand. Could see a bounce from that zone, and of course kind of retesting the low of the channel as well. But yeah, not completely sold on any opportunities here really with New Zealand dollar. I wouldn't say we're really trading at any area of confluence. We're neither testing significant resistance or the top end of the channel, more or less coming to an area of supply. So this is definitely bearish territory, but I'm not seeing a good opportunity for a short, at least one that I like. As for gold, we've been very bullish. Prices, of course, just climbing higher. As I said, just stick to the buys for now. Yes, there will be a time where price will put the top in and we will reverse. We didn't quite make 3,700, but we're not too far away from it. We are starting to find some wicks, so hence we are probably starting to slow down a little bit, but I'm not gonna call a reversal off that wick there. That's a little bit too aggressive for my liking. We do have some areas lower down which price could come back to revisit before continuing. I quite like the look of that area. Nice demand, really aggressive breakout. That could be an area which price does descend towards and perhaps have a bounce from. So I would suggest keep an eye on that area, 35.90, just below 3,600. In terms of the intraday price action, because that's kind of where you're going to focus most of your efforts, because in the 4-hour and daily charts, all you're just seeing is just bullish candles, so there's not a lot to analyze there, really, apart from just a lot of momentum. So hourly and kind of lower is where you're seeing more of a story develop. So yeah, gold, a bit of a move to the downside after some rejection. Doesn't necessarily mean any significance, not really any strong bearish pressure entering the market, nothing crucial. I do think a push to these lows could be a nice area of support. It does depend how we get there and, of course, how we react. But that's definitely an area where we could bounce from and potentially see a continuation or at least a push back into some resistance. So I think in terms of entries, that's a nice area to focus on, and this area here as well for buys. So still focusing on the buys, just looking for smart areas to enter long positions. I would suggest 36.20 and just below 3,600 as some key areas to keep in mind. But of course, that's just one side of the story. How price gets there and how we react is the other side. So that's equally as important. It's not just a situation where, okay, that's a great place for a buy, just buy. Let's see how price gets there. Is it aggressive? Is it slow? That helps paint the picture. And of course, how price reacts will help paint the picture as well. And silver, have we progressed outside the range? Doesn't look like it. Yeah, we tried to, that was Monday morning, but that failed, and now we're still trapped within the range. So yeah, silver's clearly running out of steam right now. It's starting to consolidate. It doesn't necessarily mean that we are going to top out and see a move down. It could just be the market consolidating and then eventually break to the upside and the trend's healthy again and we continue. So it's 50-50 which way we do break out. In terms of opportunities, really, if you're looking to trade within the range, then of course these are your areas of interest. In the middle is where all the noise is. So I wouldn't suggest looking for any opportunities in that area. I think if you are looking for buys, then the smart place for it would be a push back into the lows here. Although I do not like the high there. I don't like the way price swept the highs and came back down there. It's a sign that we are kind of failing on that bullish momentum. So yeah, it's a sign that we are tiring, but momentum is still up. And let's say if we do push nice and corrective back down to the low, I do think you can at least get a bounce and at least trade that range. You might not necessarily get the continuation, but a bounce and a push up, I think that's a likely move. Again, as long as things look healthy in that area. So this is where I want to focus my efforts, not in the middle. That's where all the noise is. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with the USD pairs in general. Of course, gold and silver, you need to kind of drop intraday if you're looking for any opportunities, and that's just because of the conditions of the market.